Hello, welcome to this video. My name's Rob, I'm the Canon Chancellor at Wells Cathedral, and I've got a story to tell you and then an activity to ask you to take part in. The story is about the baptism of Jesus. And it's a story that I want to tell today because it marks a particular moment in Jesus's life, a moment where he changes from doing one thing and starts doing another. It's the moment in his life when he starts doing things in public. And you're all at particular moments in your lives where you're changing from doing one thing to doing another thing, changing from one school to another school. So whether you're baptised or not, I think this story is really appropriate for you. There's some actions to do in the story. Now, at one point in the story, there's something that's really yummy to eat. So you can't see my tummy, but I'm rubbing my tummy. And when we get to that point, can we all rub our tummies together and go, mmm, yummy. Okay, so when we get something delicious to eat, it's rub tummies, mmm, yummy. Then there's something that's really horrible to eat. So can we pull a face and go, ugh, yuck. So let's do that. There's something nice to eat. Mmm, yummy. Something horrible to eat. Ugh, yuck. Now, repeatedly throughout the story, there's the phrase splish, splash, splosh as water is used. And if you're in a big group, you might like to just divide the room in two so that one half is going to do splish, the other half is going to do splash, and then you'll join together to say splosh, okay? So just give you a second to decide which side is doing splish, which side is doing splash, and then all together for splosh. So let's try that. I'll say something like, and the water went, and then we all join in, okay? So, and the water went, splish, splash, splosh. And then right at the end, just putting my script down for a second, right at the end, there's a dove. So can we make a dove just out of our hands? So just cross your thumbs over, and then you've got some wings, and that can either settle on your own shoulders, or if you're with others and it's okay to touch them, just settle the doves on each other's shoulders. So here's the story of the baptism of Jesus. Everyone had heard about John. He lived in the desert, just near the River Jordan. He didn't eat very much food, just the things that he found around him in the desert. Things like wild honey from bees, which was really delicious. Mmm, yummy. But he also ate things like locusts. And I think locusts make us go, ugh, yuck. John was strange, but people came to see him from miles and miles and miles around. They came in their tens, and they came in their hundreds, and they came in their thousands. John had something very special to tell them. Say sorry to God for all of the bad things you've done, he shouted to the crowds. If you're sorry and want to show God that you're going to try and live better lives, then come and let me wash you in the river. It will show God that you want to start again, clean and fresh. Now, John didn't use soap, and John didn't use shampoo, and the water was really quite cold. But he offered to dip people under the water as a symbol of starting a new life. And the people came. The tall people and the short people and the thin people and the fat people, the rich people and the poor people, they all came to be washed, which is what the word baptism means. They came to be washed by John in the river as a way of saying to God that they wanted to start afresh, to try their best and to live good lives. And the water went splish, splash, splosh. and the water swirled around them and over their heads, and off they went to lead new and better lives. Even some religious people came to see John. "We don't need to say sorry, do we?" they said. But John disagreed. "Everyone," he said, "has done something to upset God." And the water went splish, splash, splosh. And the water swirled around them and over their heads, and off they went to lead new and better lives. Now one day Jesus was walking along the Jordan Valley to where John was washing people in the river. He was about 30 years old and he was ready to start his work in public. He met John and said, "It's time I was washed in the river." John knew who Jesus was. He knew that Jesus was the Son of God. He knew that Jesus had done nothing that he needed to be forgiven for. "Oh no, Lord," said John, "you should wash me, not the other way around." But Jesus insisted, "It's time I was washed in the river." So John led him into the river and dipped him below the waters. And the water went splish, splash, splosh. And the water swirled around him and over his head. And as he came up from the river, a dove landed on his shoulder, and a voice shouted out from heaven, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am very pleased." And a dove, can we all make a dove? A dove came and landed on Jesus' shoulder as a sign from heaven, from God. And from that moment on, Jesus started his new and public ministry, something completely different from how he'd lived his life up to that point. And one last time, very loudly, the water goes splish, splash, splosh. And the water swirls around us and over our heads. And as we come up from the water, we go to lead new and exciting lives with God and with one another. And so that's the story of Jesus' baptism. And whether or not you're baptised, you are at that particular moment when you are going to lead new and exciting lives, something different from what you've done before. But as you go on to that new point, it's really helpful just to think back over the last few years in the school you're currently in, or if you've moved schools, maybe you'll have a slightly different journey from others in your class. But you've all been on a journey of some sort over the last few years. I'm going to invite you to create a map. The map can be anything you like. It might be a physical map with actual places. It might be ideas that you have in your mind that remind you of different moments across the last few years. But it's a personal map for you of your own pilgrimage through the last few years. And maybe at the very end of the map, you want something that you're looking forward to and that you're excited about, or that you're nervous about where you're moving on to. So a pilgrimage map to show your journey over the last few years, maybe with a hint of something you're going on to. I invite you to do that individually and maybe then to bring some things together as a class. Thank you for listening and joining in with the story, and I wish you all the best for the next step in your pilgrimage.